I am so excited to talk a little bit about House of Cosmo, but also to talk a lot more about your brand too, Teddy the Perfumer, because I've really gone into a deep dive research in this, and I've had a whole lot of fun going down the path and reading up about your fragrances, and saw the great event that you had this weekend too. So we'll get into all that, but I can't wait to talk about that. But for those of you that may, I don't know, for those that may be kind of introduced to you for the first time tonight, why don't you just start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and about how you got into this world of fragrance, and we'll kind of start from there and kind of hop into it.
Yeah, man, that's the whole journey. It's been an interesting one. So I guess do you want to start from like kind of like how I got into collecting or how I got into like the perfumery or the brand stuff, or where do you want me to go in
Yeah, man.
from?
I mean, back from the beginning. So I love your bio. Your bio talks a little bit about how you started with scent very, very early. I know. So I'd say go all the way back, brother.
Sure. So I mean, when I was a kid, my dad and my grandfather, they wore fragrances. They weren't like major collectors, but it was a pretty normal part of their lives. My dad wore Kuros for years. Actually, it's funny. I still have this bottle, vintage Kuros packaging right here on my desk, and my grandfather did too. And like my grandfather, he was always smelling good. Eventually, in the sort of last decade of his life, Blood of Chanel was actually his signature scent, and just it was something I grew up with, and I've always been very smell sensitive, and I didn't really realize how smell sensitive when I was a kid. And it kind of led into me getting some fragrances early on. And my first real fragrance was in high school, and I bought a Dior Fahrenheit. I think it was from Sephora in the early days. And then it just slowly snowballed from there. Collection slowly grew. And then I just kind of have an obsessive personality, and I didn't really realize how deep the fragrance game went. But then it just kept going, and then I was researching about the industry, and then I was learning about how fragrances were made, and then before I knew it, I was like getting textbooks and in the forums, and had a small buying ingredients, and kind of ended up with like a makeshift lab in my house. And then I don't know when to stop, and it just ended up snowballing into me creating my own scents. And then I met my business partner Ellen. We worked together. She kind of discovered my secret, and we started this brand together. And then it just kept going and going and going, and I'm just here for the ride to see where it goes.
Man, I love it. I love it. And I love how much how honest you're about it too, because I was actually listening to it. I was listening to a video the other day. I know that, and we'll get into this a little bit too, but I think you were at Firminish recently, kind of smelling some new fragrances for House of Cosmo, and kind of going through some creative briefs. And I know that Noah from Polly Sniffers was with you, and Jamie,
That's
and
right.
Noah was joking. Somebody asked him in his live yesterday, I think it was yesterday, he goes, "So how different are you as a perfumer and Teddy?" And he started laughing. He goes, "Well," he goes, he goes, Teddy's perfumes are way more beautiful," is what is what he said.
Oh,
They're
thank
way
you.
more mass appealing and beautiful than mine are. Mine are pretty rugged and masculine, but the Teddy's are beautiful. And I thought that was really interesting. You kind of hit on that a little bit about how you kind of you're smell sensitive, which I thought was really interesting. So can you talk a little bit
Yeah.
about that, and maybe how that has impacted some of your fragrances? I also noticed on your website, like on your brand, Teddy the Perfumer, you really go into detail about what's in your fragrances, and I know that you're really sensitive to that for people that may have that those questions.
Yeah, and smell sensitive, like I mean that uh, I posted a video about it recently, but there's a huge range in people's sensitivity to smell, like in how strongly people smell things, and also how well they smell different compounds. And just especially now that I've done a lot of nose training and I have a lot of ingredients, like I'm just not really anosmic to many things, even if I have a low smelling threshold for them, or a high threshold maybe, like it's hard for me to smell them. Like I just haven't really encountered something I can't smell. And on top of it, like I don't go nose blind as quickly to a lot of things I've noticed. And like when I was a kid, for example, um, I didn't realize until I was like older that it wasn't normal to like know who somebody was hanging out with before they met you, because you could smell the other person on them.
Mm.
Like I would recognize people's smells. Like, oh, you were just talking to Jane. Like, how do you know? Like, well, Jane tends to wear one of like these three like scents or like hair perfume, body washes, and it like people pick up smells as they go about their lives. If you leave your clothing in the dryer or the washer for like a fraction too long and it starts getting a little bit funky, like I smell it right away. Like I know everyone who's left their clothing in the wash for like an extra 30 minutes too long before putting it in the dryer, and it'll be to the point where I'll you know I'll be like, well, hey, by the way, you smell moldy, and nobody else will agree with me. Like I just pick up on stuff like that. And as I got older, I realized that's a little abnormal. And so part of that too, I think it influences how I personally compose fragrances, because I like heavier scents sometimes, but like I don't need to wear a lot of them. It can be like kind of overwhelming and give me a headache, not in like an allergy sense, but in like it's like overstimulating to me to have like really powerful stuff on me a lot. And so I think that translates into my fragrances, because I gravitate towards a more transparent, kind of minimalistic style, like Jean-Claude Elena kind of does. And he's somebody I look to for like compositional inspiration, because I feel like his transparency and his lightness reflect or are they feel good for my own personal taste, and that kind of is reflected in how I make my scents as well.
I appreciate you clarifying that, because, like I said, I read that wrong. So I'm glad that you said that. Thank you guys for the heart means. I appreciate it. And those of you that are in the chat, I would love for you to just kind of maybe put down there if you've smelled House of Cosmo, which we're going to get into a little bit more talking about those fragrances in a few minutes. Put down maybe your favorite one that you have out there. I would be kind of curious to see where people's noses are, which, oh, yeah, I was going to say, I got my Discovery set, which I'm very excited about, and I know a few others got their Discovery sets in today, so they're really excited. I know Max is in the chat.
Yeah, they're flying off the shelves now. We're really excited to, see all the orders coming through. And anybody in the chat, if you've placed an order, really appreciate it. It's so fun to see them arriving in people's mailboxes and getting people's reactions online. It's very gratifying, and it's so cool to see people enjoying them.
And I'll tell you the honest truth. I mean, I'm on here a lot talking to different people. I mean, it has been an overwhelmingly positive experience. I would be hard pressed to find one individual that has really been any negative about him. I think some of them project more than others, and I think that's just kind of the way the style is. I'd love for you to talk about that a little bit, but that is the only little thing. And as a guy, for me personally, I don't get too much into that, because I'll carry a decant and I'll spray it back on. Like, I don't need a scent that's going to last with me for 14 hours, right? Like, that's not really what I'm looking for in what I wear. I know some people are like that, but really appreciate you guys and in the chat talking about that. I love to hear what you guys say. So let's hop into that a little bit. So let's talk about House of Cosmo. So I know you're the creative director. So those of that maybe not are aware of the creative director title as opposed to a perfumer, which you do with your Teddy the Perfumer brand. Can you talk a little bit about that difference for those that may not be aware of kind of what that role looks like?
Absolutely. And I think there's some kind of defined roles of creative director, but it can vary. It feels like it varies a little more in the fragrance space. But so like right now I kind of have there's like two sides to me in a way. There's like my personal brand, Teddy the Perfumer, with a little Rorschach on the back, and then we have House of Cosmo. And so with my own brand, Teddy the Perfumer, this is just my unfiltered creative outlet. I'm the perfumer behind them. I'm the majority owner. I do what I want. I'm only releasing stuff that just I wanted to make for some reason. A lot of them are inspired by experiences I've had. Some of them are just cool perfumery experiments that I wanted to do that went well, and I wanted to release them. But it's just me doing my thing. I'm just creating them in a way that I think is nice, and I hope other people enjoy them too. It's just my own artistic expression. Now, House of Cosmo has a perspective, right? And it kind of helps to understand it when if you rewind to how it started, which is I do consulting for brands, and I'm a little picky because I'm busy, and so a lot of brands reach out to me and they want me to help them just spin up some kind of crappy brand to capitalize on this big fragrance wave happening right now. And I always say no, because I'm just too busy for that. I want to do more fun stuff. But Chris reached out to me and hold on a sec. And Chris was like me, where he doesn't come from the fragrance world originally. He runs a company, he owns a company, and his story was very similar to mine, because he had always done things from like a business perspective that he was good at, that made money, but now he really wanted to do something he was passionate about. And that's what took me down this path. And so we started working together because he wanted help basically doing fragrance development consulting, which is defining like the olfactory identity of the brand, creating fragrance briefs, working with fragrance houses, and evaluating the fragrances they're making for you. And Chris is a space nerd. Like he was like, I want, I have a name, House of Cosmo. I want it to be about space, about the future. And I was like, okay. And right away from working with him, I could tell like he's got a really great nose. Like he knew what he wanted, and we just became friends. We hit it off from there, and then it just snowballed really rapidly. Like we ended up being able to work with DSM Firmenich because Chris basically like hounded them until they let us in. And it just took off. And as we kind of really got to the fragrance is taking shape, he said, "Hey Teddy, like it feels like you've been here from the beginning. Like, how would you feel if this, like, once we're done with this project?" I said, "I'd be pretty bummed. Like, I'd love to keep going." And so he brought me on as the creative director and a co-founder as well. And the reason I'm the creative director is I'm not the perfumer behind the brand, because my job is to take the concept of exploring the future through scent and then trying to figure out how do we take distinct olfactive like concepts or things that maybe haven't been discovered yet or areas we want to explore in the universe of House Cosmo, translate them into the idea for a scent, and then basically work with the perfumers and the fragrance houses to execute on that, because we very specifically want fragrances that are wearable, generally more like on the more mass appealing side. Like we're not trying to be like exploring space by just being weird, but we truly want each scent to evoke the feeling that we've defined. Like we don't just want to say, oh yeah, this one's inspired by the moon, just for no reason. Like it actually has to evoke that feeling. And my job is to really drive that and to define what that smells like, and then help make sure that as we're going through the evaluation process that we're adjusting the fragrances to actually evoke the feeling behind each fragrance.
It's so funny you bring that up because we've talked a lot about briefs and about how this kind of works out and kind of how these how briefs inform the scent. And I can only imagine that your briefs are probably probably a little bit more complex than some. Would you agree with that, or am I off base with that? Do you think they're pretty consistent with most of them, or because you're trying to do something that's so different and you're trying to really break ground in a new way, do you feel like yours kind of go in a different direction?
It kind of depends on the concept, because like in some instances we know very much like what type of smell we want out of it. But in some cases we have a direction, but we're really looking to work with a perfumer that like sees the brief and goes, aha, I know what I want to do with that. And so our initial briefs like will include images. Sometimes they're it's describing a scene, like it's meant to be built around like a rose, and it's supposed to be on like a dystopian background, like the last rose on a decaying old earth after humanity is like left to explore the stars, kind of thing, right? And then we might define like what are some reference fragrances that kind of like are an olfactive direction to anchor the brief. But really like a lot of the heavy lifting comes in what happens after you get your first submissions, because the first submissions can vary wildly, right? Because especially when we have a more conceptual scent, like the perfumer will be trying to approach that concept from different angles. And then like one of my jobs is to say, okay, this is the angle that is going to get us the outcome we want, right? And then narrow in, like zero in on that, and then start to get to really heavily refining the fragrance. And we've worked with several houses now trying to like find the best fit for each scent, and each one independently has told us that we are their most picky client.
Yes, that's a compliment.
Well, when it's their account manager, it's sort of like I guess it's a compliment, but to them it's more work. So, but we'll take it.
Well, it's working so far. I mean, that's one thing I will definitely say. I've got all of them. I've smelled them all. I've got them all in front of me right now, and I've been going through them, and I love each one of them. It's so funny how I can tell which ones I would wear. I try to rank them. I've tried to rank them, and my ranking has changed like 3 times already because I have a hard time because there's so many of them are so good, and some of the comments
different times of year, different moods. It's everything always changes, kind of like with what you're feeling and what feels like a good fit for that time, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. But they're really, I mean, they're just amazing. I don't know, I don't know how to say it. I mean, you've got to be proud, right? I mean, first, let's just start with that. Like, have you taken a step back? I mean, what happened at Scent Explorer, where we are, how fast they're flying off the shelves? Like, have you had time to reflect yet and just say, "Wow, we've done something pretty cool here"?
It's been like we had a moment like right after Scent Explorer, but then we were like right into getting all of our operations like really tightened up because in a lot of ways we like kind of like if you compare what we did to what most other kind of like you know sizable decent brand launches do, like because we're not like totally bootstrapped, like we're owner funded, like Chris has put real money behind it, but it's his money, it's his passion project, right? And what we were a little shell shocked at first because when we developed the sense, right, like Chris and I, we knew that we had amazing stuff, but that was our assessment of it. And frankly, like, you know, when you're talking to a fragrance house, like you can't always, they're not usually going to be, you know, they want you to commit to like purchasing quantities and stuff. So like you can't just rely on their assessment of like whether or not it's going to be a bestseller. So like it's our own judgment, believing that we've made good stuff, but also at the same time you wonder like, am I huffing my own? Am I getting, you know, huffing glue here? Like, am I getting high off my own supply? Like, am I truly evaluating this from an objective perspective? And then because we got invited to Scent Explorer kind of unexpectedly, like we kind of Hail Married and asked Max to let us in, and he said, "Sure, that sounds great." And we had to kind of move up our release timeline to meet that. We didn't do like pre-marketing in a way that a brand would normally do. Like, you know, Chris invited a couple of influencers that were from like kind of his part of England that he made friends with, but like we didn't do any like seeding. Like there was no like paid media campaign, and the reception we got at Scent Explorer just blew us away. Like we were not prepared for that. Like we sold out of stock after like basically, you know, in early in the second day. Pre-orders were just flying off the shelves, and it was really validating. Like we were very proud of ourselves, but then at the same time we said, "Oh crap!" Like we kind of thought we'd have a little more time to ramp up, and like we're not complaining about it, but we had to then sort of have a little mini celebration, then just buckle down and get everything moving out the door. We had some bottle supplier issues that we were in the middle of resolving. And it all worked out really, really well. We're super happy with it. We're super proud, but it has been a wild ride because we just, I told Chris, I could have never sat in front of him and said, "We're going to be the number one booth of Scent Explorer," coming out of nowhere. Like I couldn't have promised that. Right. And that was just, you know, I think we had good timing. We created really great scents, and I think we were just willing to talk to everyone and have a good time at the event, and it seemed to resonate. So
Well, it's
really
funny
happy
you
with
talk
that.
about him being a space nerd, Chris, and you talked about kind of like, you know, how he had a direction that he wanted to go. He had a name and he kind of knew where he wanted to go. And I think that I'm curious, do you know how long he was thinking about this before he did it? Like, is this something that he's been dreaming up for years and years, or has he shared that with you? I'm just kind of curious because I feel
Yeah.
like it is a well thought out um idea that that I wonder, I can't imagine he just kind of thought this up last minute. I have a feeling he's been working on this for a little bit, even in his own mind.
It. I think it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. Like I think Chris is, you know, he's been a long time collector, and he had a really good friend, Justin, and they were like, you know, fragrance buddies. Like they would go to shops together, and he lost his friend Justin. I think it's going on. It's over a year ago now. I think I can't remember the exact timeline, but that was I think in the back of his mind, like there had been, you know, like you kind of dream, like if you have a thing that you're really passionate about, like you kind of think, oh, it'd be kind of cool if I had a thing in that space, right? I think that was in the back of his head, and I think there was this idea of like he loved this idea of space and futurism, but he didn't have like a big plan. And really, when he reached out to me for the consulting work, he had just kicked off, and he was basically saying, "Listen, you know, I'm not getting younger. Um, I've lost a close friend of mine. I want to make sure I'm, honoring him and pursuing my passions and like living the life that I want. And his wife was like pushing him to do that, really encouraging him to like step out and try that. But he didn't have like this crazy, tightly built out plan, right? He had this concept, a really strong concept. He knew the kind of olfactive directions of some of them. And he said, like, I want to build this out. And sometimes when you come together, like it's me, Kit, and Chris, like the team just locks in, and it just flowed out. It was just so easy. I mean, it was a lot of work, but the way everything came together and how quickly we were able to like convince these fragrance houses to work with us and like to get good work out of them. And then like the perfumers that we were working with, they were genuinely excited to do it because we were giving them fun briefs to work on, right? And it just the the whole concept materialized perfectly so quickly because Chris had this very strong direction, and we immediately knew exactly what we wanted to do when we all teamed up. It was just like
I love it.
It was a kismet, the stars aligned, whatever the secret sauce happened. It was kind of incredible, actually. Like, I don't think I'll ever be able to go back and like recreate that on my own. Like that's just a lot of hard work and a lot of luck and a lot of like good personalities and just people clicking.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because I think that's one of the things. I've talked to Chris a couple times on the phone, and I mean, unless he is just, and I don't think this is true, but unless he can just completely fool people, he seems like one of the most down to earth, nicest guys you could ever want to partner with or work with.
Oh,
I mean,
100%. I mean, both he and I in our day jobs, like, because like my background is in Silicon Valley startups. I've got an MBA. I have to deal with like private equity firms and stuff. Like, I know what a shark looks like. Like, it's not hard to, or a wolf in sheep's clothing, all that kind of stuff. And Chris is a straight shooter. Like, we quickly became friends. Like, and while becoming friends, like worked out all the business stuff like really smoothly. And your assessment is spot on. Like, Chris is a down to earth straight shooter guy, and like genuinely, that's why I went like all in, like doing the House of Cosmo thing, because like this really isn't just some. Chris isn't a guy who's saying, "Oh, look, fragrance is having a moment. Let's try to make some money." Chris is like, "This is my lifelong passion. I want to do this. Let's go." Like,
I love it.
I'm like, "Yep, really let's do it."
I mean, I keep saying it, but I mean, it's just fun to watch. It's fun to watch when you see people that click too, and you see the direction. Like, I think that we as consumers and as people who love this and are watching from the outsider perspective, I think we can see some of the same things you're describing, and we know it, but we don't really know it. Like, we're not in in it where we can see it, but we see the results of it. And I think that it's fun to watch. I mean, it's just really, it's fun to cheer you guys on and to see it continue to grow. And I don't know, I think a lot of us are really excited. And there was one question in the chat that I thought was a really good one. Max had kind of asked, he goes, how many perfumers did you guys end up using for Cosmo? Were multiple perfumers used for a single fragrance, or was it kind of, and only, share whatever you can share, but I'm just kind of curious on that.
Yeah, no, there were a few. So we had like Tim at Alpha, Bernice Watteau at DSM Firmenich, and then we had oh gosh, I'm having a total
oh, that's okay.
I'm having a total brain fart. What was her name from Galaxia? Dude, oh, I'm feeling so embarrassed.
Oh,
it'll pop into my head. But yeah, we used a few across different houses, and they're all linked on Fragrantica. And it was really fun because especially working with Berenice Watteau at DSM Firmenich, because a couple of the fragrances she worked on, like Crimson Aura and Lunar Mineral and Nova, they took really fun directions. Like Nova, for example, we wanted a starburst note, and I can't remember if she hadn't had one for a long time or if she hadn't had one before because she's French, and so they had to like go out and buy her like pink starburst candy to eat. And the first version of Nova was a like photorealistic pink starburst. Like, it even had that kind of like creamy juiciness, to it, like when you chew a starburst. And we've actually, Chris and I have put in our back pocket, like we've earmarked that scent for like like if we ever launch like another type of line, like maybe like more focused on body mist or something, it would do numbers. It's incredible. We had to like completely change it and like take that starburst note, and she was just really great to work with because a couple of the briefs she had were like tough to um, conceptualize, and she really knocked it out of the park. We were really
That's so funny that you say that because I think you've got some younger children. I've got younger children right now, two daughters who I think would love that starburst note, dude. I think it would be all
Oh yeah, like
they'd be all over that fragrance.
my daughter loves it. Chris said because you know we had a couple of like demo bottles of it, or like just bottles of like the trial fragrance, and Chris was like, yeah, my daughter's room just smells like V1 of Nova like all the time now because she just like grabbed it and ran with it. So
I love that.
that was a good like user testing right there.
I think it's hilarious.
I tell you, it smells incredible, but it's like
Photorealistic
like
starburst.
well, what's interesting too is like because there's in perfumery there's this tough concept of like you can make something photorealistic, but it doesn't feel like a perfume. Like if it smells too like the thing, then it doesn't feel like a perfume. So there's this real art to creating a fragrance that smells exactly like the thing, but also is a perfume, right? And it was exactly that. Like it didn't just feel like you were wearing candy. It felt like a finished fragrance that smelled exactly like Starburst.
Oh, that is too funny. And you know, I don't know. I haven't told you this yet, but one of my favorite videos that you have on your TikTok account is your darling daughter just just clowning.
Oh yeah,
fragrances. That is my favorite. As someone who's also a girl dad, who has got them into this whole fragrance game, and I love the ones that I just love that they're just clown. They just clown on them. They're like, Dad, how could you like that? You know, that one hit home for me. I thought that was one of the best. But those aren't things that I've created, so I thought you did a really nice job holding your feelings in for that that video.
well, one thing I noticed, I'm glad I had this particular realization a few years back because if I hadn't, I think releasing my own fragrances would have been very more difficult because when you put something out into the world that you've created, whether it's like something that you've made like personally or like you've had a hand in creating, like when Chris and I, launched House of Cosmo and Kit 2, like the whole team, you're stressed. You're like, we show up to Scent Explore, we were like sweating. We're like, we think these are good. Are people gonna just laugh at us, right? And but one thing I've realized with fragrance is that one person's trash is another's treasure, right? Like you see so many reviews of fragrances where people are like this is the worst, most abysmal thing I've ever smelled. It smells like X, Y, and Z. And somebody else will be like, wait, it smells like X, Y, and Z. I want to smell like X, Y, and Z, right? Like, so no, to some extent, right, you can actually have a bad fragrance, but like, even if somebody doesn't love your scent and they have like maybe like unpleasant or unexpected things to say about it, there's probably somebody else who loves it for that. And so it helps me like have grace and just enjoy when my daughter says my fragrance smells like moldy chocolate. I'm like, yeah, all right, I can see that because patchouli is kind of funky, right? Okay, I get you.
I love the nose training that's already happening with her. I love that. It's like you're putting her through her own nose training without her even knowing it.
her no, because my son has wicked nose, but my daughter has like I think my sensitivity, and she's got a crazy good nose, and her like olfactive memory is really good. Like some of the things she points out, I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. I didn't notice that.
That is awesome.
I like having her smell it because sometimes she's got that like blank slate, fresh perspective, and she'll just blurt something out, and I go, hot dang, you were right about that.
That is amazing. And it's so funny because you talked about that when you started noticing yourself that you had that kind of that different nose, right? Like that you could smell things other people couldn't. Do you know when you realized that was the case? Like, were you pretty young when you realized, hey, I really can smell things differently than other people? Or when did you finally kind of come to realization of that?
I think it hit me like in high school because like when you're a kid, people like you just don't. It's like because I've never smelled what other people smell. Like it just didn't occur to me that it was weird that I was the only person who would notice stuff like that. Also, I think part of it too is my mom is the same. My mom has a very like an equally sensitive nose to me, and so I think for me too, I had this reference of like as a child, your mother is usually a prominent person in your life, so like I, I had somebody close to me that experienced that. But then as I got older and like branched out in the world, it was like, oh, it's like me and my mom and like nobody else. Right. I remember I had a whole like I got into it with my dad because I was like, Dad, like you're using your dryer wrong. Because my dad was using this like energy saving setting on it, and it was like leaving the clothing kind of damp. And he's like, it's on purpose. Like it's meant to prevent wrinkles. I'm like, no, it's wrong. And your clothing smells musty. And he's like, no, it doesn't. Like, Dad, your clothing smells musty. And I turned like my brother, like, it smells musty, right? Like, no, he doesn't. I'm like, how do you not know? Like he smells musty. Like what? How are we not noticing this? So
It's a blessing and a curse. It sounds like.
well, it is. Yeah, it can be a little annoying or a little frustrating when like I'm like we're trying to point something out. I'm like, you're the one person who notices it, and everyone's looking at you like you're crazy. Like, oh, like you must be imagining it. I'm like, no, I'm not. I just have a special nose.
Yeah, you want to be that guy, right? In high school that brings that up. Yeah, sure. I get that. Dad, did you wear a lot of
Oh, and you
fragrance
know
in
what?
high school? Yeah, go ahead.
I before I forget, Mallory Napoli. That's the perfumer behind Galaxia.
There you go. There's the
And
name.
as a quick little detour, so she's with a house called Kemia, and Galaxia was a really difficult fragrance for us because do you mind? I'm gonna take a little detour here because this is like triggered this whole like memory lane here. So Galaxia was originally supposed to be like our vanilla fragrance because if you were launching a line, like you generally want to have a vanilla fragrance of some kind. But the problem we have with House of Cosmo is that we're concept driven. Like every fragrance, it has to evoke the spirit or the concept or the thing that we're trying to describe. And what that meant was that as if you're smart when you're launching a line, you have a vanilla because everyone likes vanilla. You got to have your own vanilla, right? But every time we got these vanilla forward versions of Galaxia back, because we thought like, Galaxia, Milky Way, milky, lactonic, vanilla, right? It just didn't smell right. Like it didn't, if it was too vanillic, it didn't evoke the power of the Milky Way. Like the Milky Way is like a massive, majestic thing. And we worked with several houses and we're like, listen, like in the brief, it said, not an ultra sweet gourmand. And they said, oh, you don't want an ultra sweet gourmand? Here is an incredibly sweet gourmand that we're going to send you that is totally not what we're asking for. We got very frustrated. But then randomly, kind of Kemia came to the table and they said, hey, we're going to shoot for this. And we were like, man, I don't know if we're going to be able to develop this before Sun Explore. We had time, but it was starting to get tight. And then Mallory Napoli from Kemia they developed this kind of series of fragrances, and we smelled them. Went, there it is. Like she almost nailed it first try too. Like we didn't even have to adjust it that much. At that point, we've been through a lot of different versions of different fragrances from different houses, and but we didn't realize is that she's not like a named perfumer on anything. Like she wasn't in Fragrantica. And so when we selected the fragrance, we told, Kemia, hey, we need to have her credited on the fragrance. And they said, oh, well, she's never done that before. I'm like, okay, well, you need to go on Fragrantica and get her registered because she's going to be labeled on this scent. And apparently she was like over the moon because, we were the first brand to go like, hey, like, let's put your name on this thing because this is great.
That is an amazing story. I mean, and what a beautiful way for you to recognize that too, that you had gone through these concepts and were, not having much luck. And then finally someone hit it. And then you were able to recognize her in that way. That's lovely. Cause I think that's the one thing for me that I struggle with some of the big fragrance houses is that unless you really do your research as a collector, you don't know the noses on some of these things. And I think it's such a disservice, especially with some of these big houses that unfortunately, especially designers, you're going to see a designer's name on there and that designer probably smelled that fragrance once and signed off on it and is listed, and we know that that's not how that really works. So I hate that.
Hey, and hold on a second. My wife had to go to an event for our school to it's like a fundraising planning thing. And so my daughter has stepped in for a sec. Let me time out real quick 100%. And help my daughter out with something.
Yeah, you're fine. No worries, Teddy.
I'll be right back, everyone.
I got things to catch up on. Don't worry. I'm going to show some people some of your stuff. You come
I'll be
back
back
when
in
you're
just a
ready.
few minutes.
Alrighty. So while he's gone, I wanted to show you guys. So one of the fragrances, I mean, there's a lot of them that I like that I keep going through, but Lunar Mineral is one of my favorite ones. And by the way, I love that he just did dad duty because I think that says a lot about this guy too, right there, that he, has his priorities in the right place. I love that. I mean, that's another reason why I want to support this brand. But Element Delta, another great one. And some of the notes for those that aren't aware, I guess I can go through some of those while we're kind of going through this. So when we were talking about Element Delta, that one is going to be kind of a bold, kind of an evolving type of a scent. Just a very, very interesting one. Galaxia is going to be that vanilla. We talked a little bit about that lactonic, that little bit of gourmand, woody kind of fragrance. Polaris is one that I enjoy. It's a fresh, aromatic, kind of more of a refined fragrance. Nova is a fruity floral. It's very alluring. It's just a very pleasing scent. Crimson Aura is one that I really, really like. It is one that's this warm, spicy, ambery. It's got this wine note in it that I think is beautiful, and it just smells different. It smells different than a lot of the things that I have, and I love that for that fact. And then New Eden is that transparent, fruity, ozonic type of fragrance. So I was just going through some of the notes, Teddy, just kind of showing them a little bit about kind of what the notes were and kind of what that looked like there. Oh, hold on one second. I'm back here. I think I'm back. Yeah, I'm back.
No, yeah. Hopefully I turn off my camera. We don't see it behind me. I have all these boxes because I've been, I had to like do a bunch of stuff for packaging, but hopefully you got a clean view.
Got a clean view. Didn't see anything, brother. You're looking
Nice.
great. Do you, this is a dangerous question. I know there's not an answer, so you can just go ahead and tell me there's not an answer. But do you have one? Again, it's probably dependent on the time of year. No, that's your baby. That's the one.
I mean, I'm biased because I like them all, but like I think like today, the ones I wear the most are Lunar Mineral, I wore Polaris today, Crimson Aura, New Eden. Like those are the four I tend to gravitate towards the most.
Yeah.
But Crimson Aura, it just kind of tickles a little spot in my brain because it has that warming sensation. Like when I wear it, I feel that warm glow. That was when we first smelled one of the versions of this one. Like it literally kind of gave me tingles because I was like, "Ooh!" Like I'm feeling this warm glow. Right? It's very transportive for me. So this is the one it's my number one.
I agree with what you're saying. I mean, that's what. So I live in Indiana, so it's pretty cold here. During this time of the year, it's warming up now finally. But this one makes me feel warm, and it just kind of lasts with you. And it really gets a lot of attention too. I noticed that a lot of people they notice it because it is different and in a great way. And so I get a lot of compliments on it too. So I think that's another testament that they're like, oh, that's really nice.
Fun fact about this one: so Crimson Aura, this one's by Berenice Watteau at DSM Firmenich, and I'm not a cherry fragrance guy. Like I don't actually think I have a cherry fragrance in my, like I have cherry fragrance samples, but I don't think I own a fragrance that is like notably cherry, because most cherry in perfumery is based off of like a benzaldehyde and some other stuff. Benzaldehyde is a very distinct, like kind of cherry, bitter almond smell. And, some people love it, some people hate it, but it's a very distinct way of doing cherry, and it's repetitive. But DSM Firmenich developed this, I think it's a base called, it's their STT line, it's smell the taste. And it's meant to basically smell like something tastes. And it's called cherry smell the taste base. And Berenice used it in this fragrance. And that's why that cherry note is so rich and juicy, because it is a newer take on creating the smell of cherry in perfumery. And like, it's really good. Like it's I'm obviously biased, but I genuinely, this is my favorite cherry fragrance because I don't like cherry
I'm right
fragrances.
there with you. I mean, I don't have one in my collection either, and this is one that I'm going to be buying a full bottle of. So what I did was I did the discovery set, and I've got I think 4 10 ml samples coming in because I want to really wear them and really kind of see,
Oh,
and then
nice.
and then I'm going to do that, and then hopefully there's still bottles at that point. I'm sure there will be, but then I'm
Well, we
going to.
got our bottle, like our bottle manufacturing, like all that stuff got locked in real good. So we're running smoothly now.
That's amazing. So I'm excited about that. One of the things I want to talk about before, and we can come back to House of Cosmo a little bit too. But you had a really big week, man. A Saturday, I know that you launched 2 new perfumes, and if I remember
That's
correctly,
right.
you're in the California area, maybe in the San Francisco area or somewhere around there. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah,
That's right.
that's
So
right.
I know that you had a really cool event. I saw the video on TikTok, but I want you to talk a little bit about Teddy the Perfumer because that's kind of my next thing. And I think that you have some sample sets that maybe are out of stock right now, but they may be you may be working on those. Is that right? Or
Yeah, that's right. So the the event on Saturday was kind of like a double purpose. It was both a launch party for my 2 new fragrances, which I actually have here, the Leather Paradise and Une Blonde, the two at the top there.
yeah, oh yeah.
And it was also to sort of celebrate my introduction to Ministry of Scent because they're the first like U.S. retail store carrying my full line. So Ministry of Scent now has it in their stores in San Francisco. You can smell them, and you can order them from their website as well as individual samples. And that was a big, I mean, personally, a really big moment for me because I love Ministry of Scent. I've been going there for years. I know most of the team there. I'm good friends with Michael Ryan, who runs the Fillmore store, and like I was going there long before the idea of Teddy the Perfumer, or even like the idea that I could have my own brand was like something really on my radar. So it was a very full circle moment for me of like, oh, like I'm in Ministry of Scent. My bottles are being sold there. People are here to see me. It was very cool, and it's just a very welcoming store. Really great people, and it was just kind of a pinch me moment.
It was beautiful
And
to see all the supporters there for you and all the people that were there. I thought it was just it was very nice. I'm so glad somebody recorded that. I don't know if that was your better half that was doing that or somebody on
yeah,
your.
my wife was like trying to take pictures, and she was doing the live, and it was just the way was kind of what was really incredible was I've been doing social media now for about 2 years, and before social media, like I was barely on social media. Like of all the things, like my wife jokes that she knows I have an obsessive personality. So the idea of me like going down this crazy long rabbit hole, like launching a perfume brand, not that surprising to her. But me being on social media and doing this, super surprising. Like last thing she would thought I would have been doing. And so I'm only kind of just getting used to it. And I was I was nervous. I was thinking, okay, like what if like 10 people come, right? What if like nobody comes, right? But the at one point like the store was just full of people, and it was like spilling out onto the street. It was really incredible. I just got to walk around, talk to everyone. It was such a fun night. If you were able to attend, anybody in the audience, thank you. It was a really amazing time.
I'm so glad to hear that. I'm so glad that it went well. I mean, it was fun to watch. It really was. And so I want to talk a little about your three kind of your three fragrances that you've released previously, and then we'll talk about the 2 new ones. But the one that I absolutely love the story behind, and I hope you will share it with our listeners, is Summer in Love. I think that is beautiful, the way that you created that and what it reminds you of. And I didn't know if you might walk us through that a little bit. I'll share my screen here and just kind of walk through it a little bit with the notes and the story. But if you could share on that, I'd love for you to do that.
And yet, I heard you say it was Summer in Love. Yeah, that's
Yes.
right. So my wife is a really great cook, and also she makes incredible salads, which like and my wife changed my life when it comes to salads. Let's put it that way. But in the summer, she makes a peach caprese salad where she gets like fresh, super sweet, ripe, juicy farmers market peaches and basil, and it's a caprese with peaches. And it's like this very amazing olfactory signal to me. Like when summer hits, she'll make that salad, and the way it smells in the kitchen is incredible because like the basil is super fragrant, and then the peach is not as strong as the basil, but like it really adds the sweetness in the air. And I wanted to try to bottle that. And like it's hard to maybe figure out how to make mozzarella cheese a part of your fragrance. So I, instead of doing cheese, I have like a little bit of sandalwood in there for that kind of creaminess.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted it to feel more like an experience versus like a traditional perfume. So it's not actually structured a lot like a traditional perfume. But I wanted to do that on purpose because it's meant to smell like summer to me, like the experience of hitting the summer months and getting that delicious salad.
Well, you talked about like, you walking into the house or walking into the kitchen, she might be in there making that and that kind of smell, and you just kind of instantly know that like, that's what she's making. I just thought that was a beautiful way
Yeah.
to think about a scent, and I'm sure she loves it too. That you thought enough about that to create a scent out of it. I think that's pretty beautiful too.
Yeah, she likes that one. It's fun.
Yeah, it's really good. And so, talk to us about the other two. So we have Passing Stranger, and then which one was your first? Was your first one the Benet au Chocolat?
I released my those three were released at the same time. That was like my inaugural collection. And Passing Stranger was where it started out as an experiment. Like when you're learning perfumery, there's several classic structures you work with, and a fougere or a barbershop is one of them. It's been done for a long time. It's got a pretty distinct structure, and I personally love fougeres. So as I was learning and getting more comfortable, I thought, well, maybe I should try to make my own version of a fougere. But they've been done a lot, and so I tried to figure out how can I put my own spin on it. And I thought it'd be fun to try to take a barbershop scent. Oh, look, one of my images is broken. I got to fix that.
Oh, well, super helpful
on the website. We're doing some QA here on my site. But basically, I thought it'd be fun to try to take that barbershop structure and keep it reminding you of a barbershop, but also feeling more genderless to the Western nose, because a barbershop scent tends to index masculine in the West because like people smell it on their dad, they smell brute on their dad. And
or these things.
So yeah, right. And so I incorporated like iris and rose, and like I changed the oak moss to be this more transparent material called veramoss. And the goal was to make it feel like comforting and familiar, but also like intriguing and mysterious. And then my favorite of the collection still to date, and I have a feeling it'll be my favorite of all time just because it has a special story, and like the way that I created it was very challenging. But Banana Chocolat was inspired by my daughter, because I was developing a chocolate patchouli fragrance, like just for fun. And I was trying to figure out how to make it more unique because chocolate patchouli has been done quite a bit. And I was wearing a trial for it, and I stepped out of my office, and my daughter, who was like 2 or 3 at the time, ran up to me, and she'd just been eating a banana, and she ended up smearing it all over me. And I wiped us all off, and we sat down to read a book. And as we were reading the book, I just got hit with these whiffs of like this delicious, heady, sweet, chocolatey concoction. And I realized it was the banana mixing with the chocolate and the patchouli. But the problem is that banana is not a well-researched, well-established perfumery accord. Like there are some documented accords for it, but they tend to smell really candied. Mm-hmm. And so it kicked off a year-long quest of research and trial and error to figure out how to make the smell of like a really ripe banana. Because a ripe banana is like, has a lot of yellow florals in it. It's like funky, it's sweet, it's decadent, it's syrupy. And I figured out a way, but it took a long time, and I'm very proud of it.
You should, because I mean, it sounds like that's pretty complex. I mean, that was actually one of the other questions. I guess while I have you here, I'll ask that. What do you have a note that you work with that you found is the most difficult to work with for you, or do you feel like at this point you can kind of work with anything, But is there a certain note that you just really struggle with?
Struggle with, I think. Maybe not struggle with, but one area of perfumery that I just haven't felt either both confident enough in and also felt like the time is right is to explore oud. And there's two reasons. One, I don't know as much about true oud as I would like to,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm trying to change that and like learn a lot more about it. But two, I feel like it'll be difficult to launch because the way the Western world thinks oud smells is not actually how it smells. And so like I would want to try to create something that is like a true oud that could bridge into the Western nose more effectively. And it's been like scratching in the back of my mind. I just haven't quite had the juice and the spark to like dive into it and like try to make one that I'm proud of.
That makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. No, I appreciate you sharing that. I mean, I think that really helps. Thanks again for those heartbeats. Appreciate you guys. I think that's awesome that you thought about that. So let's talk about the new ones, the two new ones. I'm excited about these. So walk us through those two.
Let's see. Let's do Un Blonde. So this one is basically it's blonde tobacco with jasmine and spearmint. Oh, that's good. And it started as an experiment because I wanted to see what jasmine and spearmint would smell like together. Just seemed like a cool idea. And then as I was thinking about building it out, I thought, okay, what would go with that? And tobacco, like fresh tobacco, if you smell it like from a pouch, maybe a little bit away from you, it's very fresh. It almost has a minty quality to it. And most perfume or most tobacco and perfume is either heavily vanilla fortified or it's like smoky. There aren't that many like airy, like bagged tobacco scents. And I started playing with that. And then at one point I had a trial, and this is going to sound cheesy, but I get a lot of synesthesia and like visions triggered by scent. And as I was smelling it, I had this vision of a young woman. She's chic. She just got ready to go out for the night. She's got a long coat on. She's walking out the door, freshly perfumed in a jasmine scent, and she's stopping by the corner store for a packet of cigarettes and chewing gum. Like that was just the vibe. And even though the vision was of a woman, like it doesn't actually index particularly gendered in the Western world, and all scent is inherently genderless anyway. But it just smelled good. And like anytime I create something that triggers a vision or a feeling, I know that I'm onto something and I'm close to done. And that's actually kind of I have like a built-in feature where when I'm close to being done, I get my body, like I feel it in my body when I'm close to being done. So I don't have to agonize over it too much. I do it until I get that weird feeling, and then I know I'm done. Sometimes it can take a long time though, but it is what it is.
Well, it's funny because it really shocked me when I looked at it, because I never had thought about. I love tobacco fragrances, but I saw tobacco brightened with spearmint, and spearmint's not a note that I would normally go towards. So I was like, I can't wait to try this because I just like you said, it's going to be something different, and I think it's going to be a neat take, and I'm looking forward to experiencing it.
I've been wearing Un Blonde a lot, and it's surprisingly high performing too. I formulate my fragrances for a kind of a minimum level of performance, but I'm never really trying to achieve high performance per se. But Un Blonde ended up being quite high performing. Like it's not super thick or like beast mode, but it's got a really great sillage, and it'll last like all day. Like I'll put it on like 8 a.m. and I'm coming home at like 6 p.m. and I'm still smelling good.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really good. I mean, when you
yeah, it's like that. And perfumery is funny that way because there are ingredients that perform a certain way, but you can't make any smell perform well because different ingredients just have they have fundamental chemical properties that you can't really change. However, there are some instances where combinations of ingredients kind of become greater than the sum of their parts, and they will then like amplify each other and get a lot louder and more diffusive and more long lasting in ways that are very hard to predict. I'm sure in the future there'll be some crazy AI algorithm that'll tell you all of that, but like we're a long way from that. So a lot of it's trial and error, and sometimes you just put stuff together and you go, whoa, man, that thing's pumping. And sometimes you put things together that should be really powerful, but the way that the molecules interact, they actually kind of smother each other. So you can actually take like multiple high performing ingredients, put them together, and then end up with like a pretty flat composition. And you can sometimes predict it a little bit, but it's a lot of trial and error and just testing. And that's why like there are some scents that just will never last. But
that's fascinating to me, because I don't think I've ever heard anybody describe it like that, which I think is awesome that you're able to describe it that way. Because I've always heard about, obviously, the heavier the concentration, the perfumes, like those are going to naturally sit a little bit closer to the skin. Mostly they'll last a little bit longer, but they're going to sit a little bit closer because they're heavier molecules. There's just more oil in the fragrance, but I've never heard that piece of it. That's very interesting.
Yeah, concentration is funny. Like, actually, Crimson Aura is a great example. Crimson Aura is a lower concentration than some of our other ones. Like New Eden's like 33%. I think Crimson Aura came in at 24, 20, I forget. But we tested a lot of concentrations. And what was interesting is that at about like that 25 range, Crimson Aura is warm and it's rich, and it blooms, and it actually has a warming sensation when you smell it. When we put it up to even like 27, like small increases, there was like the ceiling where all of a sudden it smelled like Crimson Aura, but it started getting more syrupy, and all of a sudden the warmth went away. So it was a great scent. It smelled like Crimson Aura, but it lost the magic, and it became sweeter, more syrupy at higher concentration. It was a significantly worse fragrance at like 30%.
Wow.
Like it was just not as good. And for years I struggled to describe why this is, but then Josh, who's the perfumer and founder of Paraphrase, he described this perfectly. Sorry, it wasn't Josh. It might have been Bruno Fazzolari of Fizzotic, one of those two guys. But he described perfume can be like espresso or like whiskey, where if you take like a cask strength whiskey and you drink it neat, it can actually be a less flavorful open experience than if you just add some water to it. Like diluting the whiskey can actually open up the flavors and make it a better drink. And that can be, not always, and you just have to experiment. Some whiskeys do well with a little bit of water, some don't. Same with like espresso. Like if you put a little bit of water in espresso, like it's still a very strong taste, but it changes as you dilute it, even though water doesn't have a flavor. Like you're adding water to it, but the flavor profile of the espresso changes when it becomes an Americano. And that's what happens with perfume, is sometimes a more diluted fragrance is actually projects better and smells better. And vice versa. Sometimes the higher concentration one smells better too. And the only way to know is to just test.
It's funny you say that, because I live in really near Louisville, Kentucky. So we're in the bourbon world here. And I work at a university. So we have a lot of chemistry students who do a lot with the bourbon industry, but also with perfumery. There's actually a pretty good actually perfume kind of culture here around the Louisville area.
Oh, nice.
American perfumers here in Louisville. But what's so fascinating to me is some of the things you're describing is exactly what happens. Just like they shoot the juice for fragrances, they do the same thing for bourbons, right? They GMC it, and they look at the different types of notes that are in bourbon, and it's so fascinating to me how so much of the bourbon world does translate over into the perfume world. It's fascinating to hear master distillers talk about their bourbons, and it's almost as fun as listening to you talk about your perfume creations. There's so much overlapping that happens there, just in a different sense.
No, I believe it, because I think like the vast majority of your sense of smell is driven by the vast majority of your taste is driven by your sense of smell. And that's why, like, if you pinch your nose, you can't taste very well. When you're sick and your nose is all clogged up, you can't taste very well. And so that's also why, like, the biggest fragrance houses also make flavors. Like one of the biggest ones is IFF. It's literally International Flavors and Fragrances, or International Fragrances, one of the two. And so when you see people like distillers and chefs and perfumers talking, like, the composition of smell and taste is very intertwined.
I love that. And so there's a comment that I thought was beautiful. I wanted to come back to before we talk about Leather Paradise. Danny, who's a really great person that's in this community and is doing some great work. She talked about how she was smelling Element Delta on her skin, and she currently has
Oh
it on
yeah.
her arm. And she said menthol and vanilla. She goes, I love the juxtaposition. It's like cold and warm, but at the same time, which I thought was kind of a very interesting way to describe that. I just wanted to see if you would like to comment on that.
Yeah, I love that because Element Delta was meant to evoke those feelings. Like it's meant to be this newly discovered, mysterious, shape shifting element in the cosmos. And the menthol in it is kind of like the little secret behind it because uh, when you talk about like top, middle, and base notes, that basically is how quickly they evaporate. And menthol, not only is it kind of more of like a top note, but it's very easy to smell. Like menthol takes over really easily, but it burns off really quickly. And so what happens is that the menthol kind of masks the fragrance as you're wearing it. And so every moment you're smelling it for the first like half an hour, it feels like the fragrance is shape shifting because as the menthol kind of burns away, it like reveals more and more of the fragrance and it creates this really cool shape shifting effect that gives it that weird like elemental feel.
I love it. I love it, and great job there, Danny, for picking up the menthol in there. I thought that was a great comment. So let's talk about Leather Paradise because I love the description you've done for this one too. Again, this is Teddy the Perfumer. You can check it out you can find it pretty easy. So check that out, and there, again, I think there's some samples of this one. I think that are available for these two new ones.
Yeah, the we're actually restocking my we have a my main sample set and then we have like a limited two fragrance sample set that might be almost sold out now or it might just be sold out and we're restocking because then there'll be like a five fragrance sample set with all of them all together that's coming in like a week or so.
Oh, great. Well, then I'll
But
hold out for
I
that one.
I saw Jacob. Thanks for picking up Leather Paradise, man. I appreciate it.
That is
The
really good. You got it at Ministry. Okay, great, good. So and he loves it, so that's even better. So like
yeah,
pouring a pina colada
Ministry.
into a leather bag, which I think is
That's
the most
right.
descriptive thing. And then I've got to know kind of what the story was. I know you probably have it on here, but what in the world made you think I want to create something that smells like a pina colada in a leather bag?
This one started kind of as an experiment where I was trying to see like what would go well with leather and like a tropical leather sounded fun. And this is another one where I had a vision where it like I've been to the Big Island in Hawaii a few times and I quite like it. And I've never stayed at the Mauna Kea, but I've had dinner and drinks there a few times. And there's like this bar, I think it's the Manta bar, I forget what it's called, but you're it's like you're going to the Mauna Kea for dinner and drinks, but you know you've been out on the beach all day, so you're a little salty from the ocean, you're a little tired, little you've been sweating a little bit. You don't smell funky, but you've got that kind of like that like beach, sweat on you. You sit down, you're sipping a pina colada, and like you're with your partner, or you've just bought like a leather bag for your vacation, and like you can smell like this brand new leather bag. You've got your pina colada, the salty air, and it was just like Un Blonde. It triggered this vision of just kind of leather in paradise, and and then it really I wanted to feel again like you're pouring a pina colada into a leather bag. So I thought that was just like a fun visual. But this one's fun because leather doesn't actually have a smell. Like, I mean, it has a smell, but the smell of leather isn't like, because people think like leather is like an animal product, but the smell of leather is a byproduct of the tanning process that's used, like the chemical treatments they've done. And so different leathers smell differently depending on how they're treated. And so just like, well, which means leather is kind of a made up smell. Like there's many ways that it can smell. And in perfume, it can often be very like kind of funky and animalic, like a Russian leather. There's a modern type of leather that's really based off of like saffron ingredients that's more airy and medicinal and fresh. And I wanted something in between where it was warm and inviting, not like aggressive and not super extreme. And so that was what I was going for, is like a really warm, rich, sensual, pleasant leather, not like a punch you in the jaw kind of leather.
Leather Paradise. Somebody was asking what the name was of the one that you're describing right now, and I
Yeah,
think that
leather
that's
paradise.
and so what would you say this one was? Do you think this one has? I mean, is this a summertime fragrance? Do you think it's an all year long? Wait, what do you think on this one?
That's a really good question. I actually didn't even think about that until somebody asked me that at Ministry of Scent last weekend. Because when I'm making fragrances, like I'm never really thinking about like how it fits into my line or like what the purpose of it is. I'm just trying to like achieve the thing that's popped into my head. And I realized that it actually kind of is a summer leather, like because it has, it's fruity. It's got like it's pineapple, coconut, lime. It's got the pina colada smell, and because the leather is warm and rich, not like aggressive, it actually blooms really nicely in the heat. So it's not like a freshie, but it is very much like a fresh leather. I don't want you to think it's like an aquatic, but like when you wear it in the warmth, it blooms really nicely on skin. And it like I was wearing it just this last weekend, right in the heat, and it was lovely. So it kind of is a summer leather, but it probably works surprisingly well all year round because it's not overly fresh, it's not overly fruity. It's actually, if I may say so myself, it's nicely balanced.
Yeah, of course. I figured so. I can't wait to smell it. So it's funny you bring that up because I always when I think about when I first saw this, the first thing I thought of, and I don't know why my head went there. I guess everybody has their own experiences, but I went to that sunscreen kind of smell, right? Because I think about like Tom Ford and some of the
Mm.
ones that they do that really you can really kind of when you smell that summer scent and you got that strong sunscreen, which I know this does not have that in it, but it's interesting how your mind plays tricks on you and kind of takes you to certain routes
Yeah.
based on what you smelled.
Yeah, this one, like, I was really trying to avoid that sunscreen feel because uh, things that have coconut in them can start swinging that direction. But I feel like because it has coconut, I imagine it's like I wouldn't be surprised as reviews come in if people like mention that because like I don't pick up a sunscreen vibe, but then again, like if you've ever used a more coconut heavy scented sunscreen, like it'll definitely imprint on you that way.
That's interesting.
And actually, that's probably a good segue, real quick, to talk about my logo
Yeah.
because with my other fragrance, Banana Chocolat, for example, it's really funny because as the reviews for it started coming in, I noticed this weird thing where most people said, "Yeah, there's banana in it," but some people said, I don't smell any banana in Banana Chocolat," and then some people said the banana is too strong in Banana Chocolat. And I'm wondering how can those two things be true? But the reason for that is, like we talked about earlier, everyone smells things a little differently. People have different sensitivities to things, their ability to smell things can vary, and there's really no wrong way to smell a fragrance. It's not like with clothing where if somebody has a black t-shirt, everyone goes, "Yep, that's a black t-shirt." Not a lot of room for interpretation, but you can have pretty straightforward smells that will be perceived pretty differently by different people. And that's why I went with this logo, because when we were first coming up with the brand and I was working with Ellen, my business partner, on it, I said, I don't want any teddy imagery. No teddy bears, too obvious. But then she has a friend who's an artist and he had this ink blot and he said, it kind of looks like a teddy bear. And I realized it was perfect because not everyone sees a teddy bear right at first. One person saw tarantula. I always loved saying that because it was so weird. Like I've never seen a tarantula, but there you have it. And some people see other things. Some people takes them a while to see the teddy bear. But that's kind of the point, is that there's no wrong way to interpret it, just like there's no wrong way to interpret a fragrance.
I love it. I'm glad you explained that because I also love that it's got like this psychology piece of this, right? Like it's got, I love that. It's kind of like, hey, what do you see when you go in and
Yeah,
sit in a
right.
chair? get a little
I
bit
see
of
my
get a,
mother. Oh
yeah,
no.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, get a little bit of that in there. But so I do have a kind of a I don't know. This question probably will be a little bit out of left field for you, but I always love asking people like you that have a really I would say refined and well trained nose and somebody that develops sense. So, what is a designer fragrance that you love that you go to and you're just like, you know what, I love that designer fragrance. I don't care. It's a designer and I like it.
Two of my most worn fragrances are Prada L'Homme, the original one. So good. Just
So good.
absolutely, just it's a masterpiece. Think it uses a lot of mahoniol in it, which is a captive ingredient. That's one of the reasons why Prada L'Homme is like not really been super well cloned because clone houses can't get access to that particular ingredient. And then other one is Bleu de Chanel, the eau de toilette.
Yep. Oh, really?
Love it.
Eau de toilette's the one you go with.
The eau
Okay.
de toilette. The eau de parfum goes a little bit too heavy. I mean, it's a great scent, but it goes heavier into the amberwood, so it gets a little bit scratchy for my taste. Like it's not scratchy, but it just has this tickling sensation that it's not exactly what I want. The parfum I quite like. It's a nice reinterpretation by the grandson, and then there's the L'Exclusive as well. Not like my personal style, but I thought it was a good release from Chanel because it really kind of addressed some of the longevity things that people wanted. But the eau de toilette, not only is it like a masterpiece, but also my grandfather wore it for like the last decade of his life. It was his signature and it smells incredible. I think people, it gets kind of like a bad rap for being, common or played out. But I'll tell you, I've worn it a lot. Nobody has ever said I smelled familiar. And it's a compliment monster. Smells fantastic, and I think the eau de toilette just has that brighter grapefruit that really just gets you, and it just is. It's fantastic.
I appreciate you saying that. I mean, there's a reason why that and Sauvage are the two best sellers right in the United States. Like people always like to hate on them. Like, a lot of people want to hate on Sauvage and I laugh because I'm like, well, I mean, I get it. I get people want to hate on them, but there's a reason why it's sold, why it's the number one selling fragrance. And, it's like people are still buying it. So
I always look at Sauvage and Bleu de Chanel as two sides of the same coin, where Sauvage is kind of, it's got like bigger brush strokes and it's well done. It does what it is meant to do really well. Like it's a great smelling fragrance, though it can be a little bit aggressive, like in like the intensity of it. Whereas like Bleu de Chanel is, it's a much more subtle composition. There's a lot of like detail in there. I don't necessarily know if the formula has more detail. I've never like really explored it. Come to think of it, I don't know why, but they are achieving similar things with different approaches, and they both do them well.
Well, the one thing I'm laughing because Max completely beat me to this question, but I feel like your next fragrance has to be something after this skateboard trick that you're doing here. It's been so much fun watching your videos of you out there reliving your glory days, my friend.
Oh yeah, it's been a little painful reentry, but I've finally kind of gotten some of the balance back, and it's been fun. But it has been on my mind, like it'd be fun to create like a late 90s early thousands like skateboarding inspired fragrance. Like I've been trying to figure out how to make like a surge note, because surge was like really hot at the time. I drank a lot of it. It's like very prime for me. I'm like, I feel like there's something in there, like
there
skate wax and surge. Yeah.
There's something there. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. That's funny. So that's pretty good. We need a board wax fragrance. That's a scent memory.
Well, I see Max sent has the question, what's the next skateboard trick? So, I mean, I think I'm really focused on getting really clean kick flips. Like I want boned out kick flips where you catch with your back foot, and then I really want to be able to land tray flips consistently, because I mean, tray flips are tray flips, right? You got to do it. So
I freaking love this. I mean, I think you should get Tony Hawk to be like your partner, your business partner in this one. Like we can come up with something. Come on,
Tony, if you're watching this, hit me up. Emails in the bio.
I love it, man. I really appreciate you coming on here tonight. I kind of want to give you the final question, or the final kind of say on kind of what you'd like to share with us. But first off, let me say that for all of us, we just appreciate you sharing your art with us. I mean, and doing amazing fragrances for House of Cosmo and everything you're doing there. We're actually looking. I mean, I'm looking forward to the to next year, and to the next ones that you guys I know are already kind of working and smelling through, and kind of what's going to be next in the collection. But
Right, we
it's
got
been a
a
lot
lot
of
of stuff
fun.
coming through.
Go ahead. I'm
And
sorry.
actually, hold on one from my. I was getting a message from my wife there real quick, but it's all good, making sure my kids are okay.
Yeah.
But
Good.
no, we're really excited because we have a lot of stuff coming up. We've already got for House of Cosmo, we've already got several scents in development. Like Jamie and Noah, he came with us to New York to review some of them. Um, got to meet with some amazing perfumers that are also working with us now. Like we spent a good bunch of time with Rodrigo Flores Rue for a couple scents we're very excited about. And then we're already planning out the booth for Scent Explore. Uh, we loved Scent Explore this last year. We're going to come back and do it like even bigger, even better. We've got some fun ideas to really launch several fragrances at that event because we've got a few that are humming along really nicely. And also, right around the corner, in fact, this Friday evening, we have our first in-store event in La Jetée in Las Vegas. I think it's at the Palazzo. So I'll actually be flying out to Vegas on Friday, and Chris will be there. I'll be there. I think it's from 6 to 10 p.m. Don't quote me on that, but it's if you're in Las Vegas on Friday, we're having an event at La Jetée, and we'll be there. We'll be selling bottles. We'll be hanging out with people. It'll be a lot of fun, and we're just looking forward to doing more stuff, connecting with the community, like doing events, doing lives, documenting the creation of our new scents, and just kind of trying to share more of a behind the scenes look at like what we do to develop each new fragrance as we build them up and try to get them ready to share with the world at Scent Explore in the winter, because like we're already looking forward to that one again. Last year was so much fun. We're already planning the next one because we can't wait to do it again.
So Dark Matter is the one that we know is coming, right? Because that's the one we know is on the way. That's the
Right.
one for sure we know about. And the other ones they're still. I mean, they're in development, but we'll learn about those eventually
Yeah.
as time moves
We've
forward.
got Dark Matter coming out. That'll be before Scent Explore. And we've got we haven't, because the thing is with us, like a lot of brands, they'll say like, okay, we're doing these two fragrances by this time. We have a goal of what we want, but again, like our strongest feature, which is also difficult for us sometimes, is that we are concept driven. Like the fragrances have to evoke the feeling that we're trying to achieve. And so we're never just going to like put a smell in a bottle and call it something. So we have a few scents that we know we want to launch at Scent Explorer, but whether or not they will be, yeah, if they're ready. But also what we do is my new joke that I started as a joke, but now I'm serious about it, is that we're building lore in the universe of the House of Cosmo. Like we have New Eden, which is meant to smell like the atmosphere of this new Earth-like planet, which has unlocked the world of New Eden. So we're going to begin exploring different smells on this new planet, right? So as we are developing new fragrances, we sometimes discover other ones along the way, because like as we're evaluating a smell for one thing, we might go, oh, you know what? That's off brief. But you know what that reminds me of? This other idea we had that we weren't focusing on right now. That's how Lunar Mineral came about, because we wanted something that was like sort of like an asteroid, or like lunar deposits on it, or mineral deposits on a distant moon. There we go. And one of the fragrances for one of the briefs like triggered that feeling, and we said, hold up, let's chase that one as well. And so by the time we get to Scent Explorer, we may very well achieve the ones we set out to, but sometimes we might find a better one along the way that we discover within the universe to release. And it's a journey for us as well as we go through it, which makes it even more fun, but also a little unpredictable.
Yeah, very unpredictable. We've got a few people that are just asking this question, and I know how busy you guys are, but FragCon in Houston, probably not on the schedule for this year. I would think that's a first-time event.
That's right.
Yeah, I thought that was right, but I wanted to double check, give you the opportunity on that. But I mean, you could be at an event every week if you probably wanted to be.
Well, for us, because like we what we're really focusing on is like we've only just started, right? And so like we thought maybe it'd be cool to go to Essence and Milan and all these things, but in the end, like we've got our core team, and our focus is on developing great scents, delivering really good product to people, like making sure really good product to people, like making sure all of our production is tight, making sure people can get their fragrances delivered and keep our stock up and moving, all of our quality high. And we realized that in this first year, like we just want to like get our our sea legs under us, like really make sure that we're super tight, and spend that time engaging with the community, and then focus on like doing Scent Explore again at the end of the year, because it's actually earlier this year, so it'll be a little less than a year since the last one. And then I think maybe in year two is when we might do like more than one event. But like, we're really focused on developing the scents, getting everything as tight as possible, super smooth, and then ramping up into Scent Explore again.
That's so exciting. And then, there was one person I had a note down here I was going through before we wrap up, and I saw you mentioned another name that I don't think I've heard a lot from that is a part of the House of Cosmo experience too. Kit, I think, is who you said. Could you explain a little bit
That's
about
right.
because I don't know how many of us know that, but we obviously know you, Teddy, and I know Chris, but who's Kit, and tell us about that individual.
Yeah, Kit is one of our, like he's one of the team. He's one of our partners, and he's like uh, basically like keeping all the operations glued together behind the scenes. And like without him, we wouldn't have things moving along at the speed we've needed to, and like been able to get all of our bottling things handled. And he's just an indispensable part of like how we operate, and like making sure like our online store is working, like all that kind of stuff. Like Kit is the man.
I love that, and I love
He's
that.
like the
I love
magician
that you
behind
have
the
a team.
scenes.
Yeah, but that's
Oh yeah,
important.
like
I mean, think about how important that is. I mean, we've seen people that can't do that, and how quickly that'll kill a brand if you can't have those things, buttoned down.
absolutely. I think that's kind of the magic that has happened with House of Cosmo, because again, there are lots of examples of out there, and they can be great brands of people who they came up with a cool fragrance concept, they raised money, they got like a design team together, like they built like a whole really big team, and they did it in a very traditional way. And in many ways, like House of Cosmo did it a little differently, where like we didn't raise like outside money, and none of us who launched House of Cosmo are like industry natives. Like we didn't hire a PR firm. We didn't hire like we obviously like had like we had some design work done, like on making sure like the logo was tight, but none of what we did was in the traditional like big brand launch sense. But each of us has like skills we're bringing, a lot of passion, and like we just really came together to release what we thought were really cool scents. And then Kit was and continues to be just a huge part of that behind the scenes.
So, if we want to support you, Teddy, what's the best way we can do that? Both you and House of Cosmo. What's the best way we can help support you and what you're doing?
Honestly, it's one of those things where I'm like a terrible salesperson, where uh, you know I'm not going to tell you to go out and like buy all of our stuff and everything, but obviously I would love it if you do, because the way I look at it is, myself, I've put a tremendous amount of like time and passion into my own brand. I've put just as much time and passion into House of Cosmo. And I think what really kind of sets us apart is that we really, really do, like the whole team is, we're so invested in it, because this is truly our passion project. Like we all came from like different career paths in different areas. We are not career fragrance people. We started out as collectors, and now we're doing this as a dream come true. And I hope that translates into the kind of scents we make. And so if that sounds interesting, I'd love it for you to pick up a sample set and try them out. And all of our sample sets come with a code so you can get that discount on a full bottle too. So,
That's a great reminder, because I've, honestly, to be completely honest with you, I'm going to be getting a bottle soon, but I forgot about the code. So you just reminded me. So that would have been shame on me for forgetting that. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, if you get a sample set for my brand and also for House of Cosmo, both brands, it comes with that same amount off of a full bottle purchase in the future.
Thank you for doing that, because I think that is something that not every brand does, and I think that is just a genius way to do it. And I think it almost is like both brands have it's almost like the individual, but then the brand also have skin in the game, right? And it's like it's this beautiful way to do it, to where you can smell everything and then you can really dial into what you'd like, especially for those of us who and there's a lot of people I know that are on here that live relatively in the middle of nowhere and probably can't get to a niche store, or can get to a place where they can really smell some of these. So it's just beautiful that you've thought about all of that, and you've really, I guess one of the ways I would say is that I think you guys have paid really a close attention to detail on how to make the experience the very best it can be for the.
My daughter is snuck in the room.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine.
Hey, buddy, what's up?
It hurts when I try to.
Hey, buddy, can I help you in a little bit, bud? I know, but can I help you in a little bit, bud? I'll be there in a minute, all right? Okay, I'll be right there, okay.
Teddy, she's a greater calling calls, brother. And I love that you paused this earlier and went and took care of things. I think that says a lot about who you are. Thank you. We've taken more of your time than we needed to, but we really appreciate you, brother. It was a lot of fun. And just to wrap up the thing about the sample sets, like when we were talking about it, what you said right there of like, not everyone lives by a store where you can sample stuff, but also like, we're not in stores anyway, so you can't sample it. It just felt like a no-brainer to give people that option. Like, hey, spending $30, $40, $50 on a sample set, like that's real money, right? And then giving people that like reward of like, hey, you took a chance, you're smelling it, and like letting you get that back on the first fragrance was important to us. So I'm glad people like that. They love it. They love it. Teddy, thank you, sir. I can't wait to keep cheering you on and watch. Just know there's a lot of us cheering you on in the background, brother. Keep up the great work, and thank you for being a great guy and being a great artist who's sharing your passion with us. It really means a lot to us collectors, and I don't think it means a lot to the whole community. So you've got a lot of people I think are going to be watching, are going to be taking some notes as they release new things, and I think that's a beautiful thing.
Thanks, Ben. I really appreciate you having me on. This was a wonderful interview. You've got a great setup. And hey, everyone in the audience, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for listening to me ramble about things that I enjoy doing. And yeah, this has been really fun. Thanks.
Yeah, well, you're welcome back anytime. This will be actually, we recorded this, so this will be on the Tube of the U for anybody that missed it or maybe missed a few minutes of it. It'll be up probably the next day or two. And so definitely, and I'll get you a copy, Teddy, and you feel free to use it any way that helps you and helps both brands. And again, man, it's been a lot of fun to watch, and you're welcome anytime.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Sounds great. Have a great night, guys. Everyone. Thanks so much for being in the chat. We appreciate you. Thanks, Lizzie Beth, for moderating, and I will see you guys next week.